Alright, sweet. We had Allenie come on the podcast today. I really enjoyed this chat. It was really cool. Allenie's just started her own practices with meditation, helping people with their inner child and all that. She's doing this out of a yoga studio in Logan. So I will pop all the links down in below. And that, it was a really cool chat. I actually quite enjoyed it. So, and I think you guys will get a lot out of it as well. Highly suggest to go check out all our work as well, which I'll link down in the links bio below when the wind just picks up. So my mic's going to go a little bit funny. But other than that, I hope you enjoyed today's episode, guys. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for coming on the show.
That's right.
Sweet. Let's get into it. So you've been doing a whole bunch of stuff lately. I'll get you to explain all of that instead of me trying to break it all down, and we'll go from there. Guess we could go many different ways with this podcast.
Yeah. Cool. Started my own practice back home. Started in January. Holistic healing and soulful guidance through your own body and nervous system to help explore your trauma and sort of own it so that you're not having internal battles out in the real world. I just do one-on-one sessions and do inner child work, if you've heard of that. And then just run group meditation sessions where just aligning the whole body and just letting people feel calm and just love that.
That's cool. So what kind of modalities you kind of use with it to help people to heal their inner trauma, inner child and all that kind of stuff? Because I really like the inner child stuff because it's the stuff I love talking about. So it's coming, parenting your inner child kind of things. So what's some of the modalities you help around that with people?
So I'll always drop in with people, so we'll meditate together, just get really calm so the mind is quiet. And then we'll just have a chat, talk about what they want to dive into, what's come up for them during the week or whatever. And then we usually just dive back in through meditation. So I'll guide them back into the space inside their body. And then we just really visualize what's alive there, what it feels like, what it looks like, sounds like. Really just get familiar with what's going on in that place. And then just go through a process of understanding it and accepting it and feeling it so that you know what that feeling is and you can just become familiar with it, because when you know what it is, then you're not shocked when it shows up. So just an accepting and really empowering process, I suppose.
That's cool, because I've seen you talk about this before, the masculine and the feminine, and it's this is something I've got into at the beginning of the year. And it's the way you're explaining it is more the feminine archetype. So it's a lot of the time is in our society we jump to masculine, so it's the logical, analytical, trying to solve the problem, then sitting back and accepting it. And the one thing that we all need first is love and acceptance before we can transcend something and start looking into it.
Because masculinity is all about getting the goal and just being determined, being powerful, being protective, getting what it is that you want. And we've grown up in that society and that it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I feel it's just gone further than what it should, or at least it's not being balanced out. And now you can see more practitioners are coming out doing more loving things, more nurturing and just heartwarming things to help us balance out all of this go, you know what I mean? So just being just really soft and gentle with ourselves.
Because I've listened to heaps of different podcasts, different theories on this as well. It's a lot of indigenous cultures speak of this time being the rise of the feminine. It's going to be the first time the birds actually going to have, also humanity is actually going to have two wings, because we've been dominated so long from each society has always been highly masculine. And it's the first time the feminine is going to come more into the role. And it's it's understanding too, even us guys, that we have femininity in us too, and that we have when you do inner child stuff, it's you love and accept it and all that as well.
When I had a male come for one-on-one sessions and I wanted to dive into masculine and femininity, I expected to dive into his femininity, that was just what I would have thought was going to happen. And then it was just the other way around. Like, even though we're in a masculine driven world, even the masculinity and all that energy that's coming out isn't what it should be. It's really like damaged, and it's coming from like an ego place rather than like a pure like empowered place. Like, yeah, I'm masculine, I'm powerful. Rather, it's more like, you have to be powerful, you have to be strong, or like you're not a man, sort of thing. So yeah, it just gobsmacked me that we're living in this masculine nature, but it's still not even healthy. Yeah,
it's quite interesting you say that, because it's like even with myself, I know I tendency have more feminine like traits, because I like, I guess masculine's more like, you know, liking things. I like, you know, doing people stuff and talking to people, which that's like, it works out to be like 10% of the male population that's into that. And yeah, I still find the same thing. It gets caught in the tracks. Like, I need to be like this, I need to be like that. And it's like, no, I'm not working my strengths if I keep going into that, you know, thinking I have to be like that.
Yeah, I like when like men can own it as well. Like, yeah, I am feminine in these ways, and like it's beautiful to own it like that. Like, knowing where you're soft and where you're strong as well. But it's so hard because, like, especially with social media, like, there's all this masculinity around, or there's all these beautiful women around, and we're like, oh, we have to be like this, but we just have to be ourselves.
Yeah, because that's something I was like in a big thought about the other day, and it's like, you know, especially around, I guess, mental health and social media, and it's like these days we have to have such, you know, multiple masks, and then you got your own avatar, who you are on social media, and then you come back to real life, and then you wonder like why you feel lost in that. But we spend so much time in the real world, I mean, on the social media world, and then when we come back to the real world, we don't know who we are, because we're pretending to be someone else.
Yes, for sure. I feel like, just with me starting my practice, it's been so weird to put myself out on social media, like talking to the camera, and then I'm always like, what is this picture that I'm painting of myself? Because like, I feel like I'm a pretty like chilled out, like cool gal, but then like when I'm on social media, I'm like, I just look like this, like like all like on there. But it's just, it's just crazy, like what you put up is just, that's what people see, and that's what they just take you for. And you can so easily misguide people like that.
Yeah, you're spot on with that, because like a lot of the time is like, I get a lot of business coaches that help me out here and there, and they're like, you need to niche down if you're online marketing. And I was like, but then I'm not being authentic, because like I like to show up how I'm feeling on that day, so then people get to experience different parts of me online, so it's not just like the one kind of, I guess, the label persona, the label giving ourselves like the mindset coach, like everything's just mindsets. It's like, that's not really the case. And
like if you're like a life coach, or like, you know, when you're in this line of work, you're supporting people, but like you need to be able to own when you're not at your best. Like we're not perfect, like even though like we're trying to help people, we can still get nervous, and we can still like have a day that we're a bit off. Like I feel like a lot of like mainstream life coaches are really like, like follow me, like listen to me, I've got all these tips, and it's like, oh, I like to practice from like, you have what you need to know, and like I'll just help you like find it, I suppose.
That's exactly the way I like to do it, because it's like, you already have it all in you. You shouldn't like need me in 6 months time, or like a year time, once you healed that stuff. It's like, because that's what I find with a lot of the coaching is like, I guess it's like, it's the same people that filter in and out kind of thing. And I was gonna say too, it's really funny that you said like all that as well, because I remember doing like my first like Own It workshop last year, and then before it I just went blank. Had like nerves just kicked in, and I was like, holy crap, can I actually do this? Kind of thing.
Literally. It's like so nerve-wracking. Like when I first had people come for one-on-ones, I would like full drop in for like half an hour with myself. I'm like, okay. Like trying to like think of what to do, but I'm also know within me, I'm like, just let it like do its thing, like it will uncover itself. And I actually had a coach of mine tell me something that like really stuck with me. She was like, you can't go wrong because you're guiding people in their own journey, like you're taking them through themselves, so like you can't really do wrong, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Because it's our own ego in a way that looks for that perfection kind of mindset. It's like, you know, we need to do it like this or it looks like this, but then they're on their own journey, we're on our own journey as well.
Yeah.
So it's like the trap that we get caught up in.
Yeah. It's, I still get nervous sometimes, but I also am a lot better at just like letting go and being like, look, they're here to do their work. I'm keen for that, and that's, I feel like, all that matters.
Yeah, and I think nerves are like a good thing though. They're not a bad thing, because it shows that you care a lot, or like you care. And like one thing I've learned with like nerves is that it's an energy source. So it's like your body getting prepared to, generally would back in the day, for battle, but then it's like getting prepared for like to help someone and all that kind of stuff. Yeah,
sort of like a wake up, like you're here now, like you're about to take on this challenge. I love all that stuff, like the nervous system and how it like just tells you what's going on is crazy.
It's insane. Also too, like I guess we should dive a little bit in, like where did your kind of spiritual journey started?
Yeah, so it was about like 2 to 3 years ago back at home. But yeah, like I said to you before, like I've always like questioned life, like always wanted to know like more about space or more about the earth or I was just really like in love with the earth and everything that was around me, and I was like, okay, well, what is all this? And then I started to question myself eventually. It's like, well, what the fuck am I? Like, and so like I said earlier, my friend Scott had passed away in like our group of friends, and I think just being so close to death like that, I haven't really experienced it on that like level. It was just really eye-opening, and like I was in a completely different life situation at the time as well, like in like not the best serving relationships and connections in my life. And then I came across my friend that I told you about, Sam, and he sort of just like opened my eyes to all of this, and we just got to like explore life a little bit together, and I just like felt so much more free and was like more comfortable in the earth and to just do what I want. And then just started reading books, even though I would have never picked up a book like 3 years ago. I just like read all of them, and I was like, wow, like there's just so much to this, and it doesn't stop. So like we said, how you can like plummet into it and you go real fast, and now I feel like I've got my pace, and I'm like happy to just keep exploring at my pace now.
Yeah, because that's the most important thing, and that's something I've just recently learned, as we spoke about before. It's like it's so important just to find your own pace, because everyone wants you to go so much quicker, and it's like once you get your own pace, stay at that kind of pace. Because as you're saying, if you plummet too far in, and then you got to go through like, I guess, ego deaths, which that's kind of painful. We still go through them anyway, but you don't go through them as quick, and it gives you time to integrate what you learn as well. Yeah,
for sure. And like going at your own pace, like what you were saying, you started Reiki ages ago, but you can see now so many people like, oh my gosh, Reiki, like that's a thing. So now everyone's doing it, but like they didn't really come across it on their own. They just saw that it was up and booming. They jumped. Does that make sense? Like if you're not going at your own pace, then it's probably your ego trying to like take you like go do that because it's getting a reward almost.
Yeah, it's just like, I guess it comes back to the social media thing. You're creating that picture of like, look who I am kind of thing. Because like you do need to, like, people are endlessly like learning, doing different courses and all that kind of stuff, which there's nothing wrong with that. But it's like knowing when to take the time out to integrate what you learn.
And I was saying that to my friend the other day, like he was like doing all these learnings and stuff like that, and I was like, oh no, where did he go? He went away in his van, and then he came back home, and I was like, oh, now you have time to like reintegrate to the earth. And he was like, oh, like I never even considered the integration period. Like you definitely need time to reflect and reevaluate what did you just do. Otherwise you don't get the learning from it as much.
And then plus too, like it gives a chance for your nervous system to adjust as well, because like, one thing I've noticed when I was like heavily deep in learning, my nervous system wasn't keeping up with me. So then I had all the knowledge, but I was still getting triggered by other things. That I was before.
Or you keep getting the same lessons. They just keep coming back. I'm like, I've already done this. It's like, oh, you haven't let it settle in. Make its home.
100%. What would you say, like, during that period when you were first getting into it, was the biggest thing that you've learned?
I don't know. It was just sort of like, the mind body, like just the two different bodies, and being the observer and being also like the spirit as well, like having both feet in the doors. I think that was the first concept that I learned, but I'm still learning it to this day.
Yeah.
I think that's the one thing that's like, yeah, be the observer, but don't be attached to what you're observing.
Yeah.
Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah. It's like, because it's like, because one of the people I look up to is named Peter Crane, and he talks about, you know, living in, which is just probably similar, living in uncertainty. So it's like not getting, you have your wants and all that, but not getting attached to it.
Yeah, like living in the unknown as well. I think that's another one they say, I did my like group session last night, and the thing that I like focused on at the end was like, got them to like really embody their goal and like envision their goal, and then I just was like, alright, everyone breathe deeply and we let it go. And I was like, now that your body knows that that's what it wants, like it's gonna go to that. And it's just like, I can't remember why I was talking about that, but yeah
100% get that. And it's like, I think like it's crazy how much like you still continue to learn about it as you go on. Like one of the first things I learned was how to breathe. And then you know how like breathwork's exploded now, and like how much I like started to learn more about the breath now. I went through a period which I didn't really learn anything about. It was more meditation. Now I've like got back into it again.
I only like, I've heard about breathwork for ages, and I went to this one workshop, but like it was like 3 years ago, 2 years ago now. There was like 50 people in the room, but no one was really guiding me. Like they just sort of said like, okay, we're gonna do this, put music on, everyone know how to do the breathing, and everyone was just like, yep. And I was like, oh no, and they like sort of explained it. So I was just laying there for 3 hours breathing, and like I was like, what is this? I never went to a breathwork workshop again until like 2 or 3 weeks ago. My friends held one because they just started it, and it was so powerful. And I was like, what was going on? Like my body wasn't ready to learn breath work at that time. So I was just all into meditation, and now just learning breath work, I'm just like, wow, they go together so well.
I remember the first time I actually went to like a breathwork class myself. Like I went to an event, first time going to it, and like I thought I had done breathwork at home, and they're like, have you done breathwork? I'm like, yeah, I have. And then we ended up doing it, and then it was like, because we did a nootropic breathwork, which is pretty intense. It's like trauma releasing stuff.
True. Is it like a really deep one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like really like all hyperventilating kind of thing. So and then I did it, and then we had to stand up, and I fell over. And like the first thing is I knocked a sign and broke a statue and all that.
Oh my god, everyone would have like loved it though. And be like, oh, it's working.
And here I am, first time being there, and I'm like,
oh my gosh, that type of breathing, because I saw like my own like healer mentor for a while there, and she got me to do that breathing, and I couldn't do it. Like I would start, and then I would just start crying, and then I'd get annoyed that I can't do it, and I'm like, what's going on? And I can only now sort of start to do that, but like it was just, I found it so difficult. But when I did do it for the first time for like 2 minutes, I remember writing in my journal, I was like, fuck yeah, like I just did this breathing.
Because it's the same with me, like, because I cough a lot when I do that breath work, so then everything just like comes up, and then like a lot of the time is, I think I did something similar at the end of 2020, and it was like the first time I cried in like 3 years from doing that type of breath work.
Wait, first time you cried in like 3 years in general? Oh wow, I cry like once a month.
Well, it's like, it's not a bad thing to cry in that, and I think it's like a good thing that I like learned to cry through doing that type of breath work as well, because it's like such a
release. Yeah, for sure. Have you like, do you find that you cry more often now? Yeah. It's like, when I first saw my therapist, I was crying every session. I was like, I'm so sorry. And she was like, no, like it's actually perfect too. And I don't know, I just always had this shame about like crying in front of everyone. I was like, I can't do it, but it's actually really powerful. Yeah,
because like what people don't know is that it's like when you cry, you're kind of helping the body release the emotions that are, tensing it up. And then there's a really cool book that talks into it. It's like The Body Keeps the Score, and it talks about how trauma and like emotions store in the body if you don't allow it to release out. Yeah,
for sure. And if they're like stored in there for too long in like a bad way, that's when like you get sick and you have all these diseases come through, and it's just like, I just think it's crazy how everything's connected, but like
Yeah.
there's so many people like when they've got this disease and then I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, like, you know, do you need to talk about this? They're like, no, it's not that. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay, well, you're angry, so
Yeah.
it's something.
There's a really cool book that I wanted to read, and it's like the metabolical theory of cancer, and it
Okay.
talks about like the emotional component of cancer, because like you meet a lot of people that are super like healthy, but then they end up getting like cancer, and it's from
Yeah.
like the emotional build-up.
Yeah.
And they talk about that in the documentary. I think it's called Heal,
Okay.
and it has like Dr. Joe Dispenza,
I love him.
Bruce Lipton, and all that in there as well.
Yep.
Which I think that it was on Netflix, but now it's on Gaia. I think it's
Yes,
called.
I have that. Do you have
Yeah,
that?
I got Gaia.
Oh, dude,
It's
it's
good.
the best.
It's
yeah.
good.
I barely watch Netflix. I'll just put that on and just like. I remember the first thing I watched was this documentary about water. And I was like,
what's that?
you have?
Yeah.
Oh,
That
and I
was so
just like,
interesting. Yeah.
What? It was crazy.
It's crazy, like when I was watching that documentary, and it's like, wow, like how we do, like we don't allow water to flow naturally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like you know when it goes through its whole process and it finally gets to your cup, it's like it needs to chill out for a second. Like it's just been on this journey to get here.
Yeah.
And if once it's chilled, then when you drink it, it will just nourish you that little bit better or something like that. I don't know, it was ages ago when I watched it, but yeah, it's just whack.
Yeah, it's so interesting, eh? But yeah, I guess like to kind of wrap it up on this one. It's like what are like say the 3 things you would do to help people with their inner child?
Go outside and do whatever you feel drawn to do. Like go outside without the phone, without stimulation. Yeah, whether you like want to cartwheel, draw, or just like lay there, just go outside and let your body do that, whatever it wants to. Maybe at night before you go to bed, just like hold your heart and I don't know, just sit there for a moment, whether you want to say thanks, whether you want to be like, good job for today, like that little bit of encouragement. Like when you start to encourage yourself, I feel like it first comes out like a child. You're like, oh, good job. You know, like, just like that little,
it's like,
that little like fist
bump.
So yeah, just have that. And then the third thing, I don't know. Maybe go like play with another form of life, like a person or an animal or like nature and the trees.
I think that's so important though, play.
Yeah.
It's like we're so serious as an adult that we forget how to play, and that's like the best thing to help release trauma as well.
Yeah, and your imagination, when your imagination then gets to run free, that's when like you're at your most like pure, like aware state.
Yeah, because I have a friend that I was talking to on Sunday, his sister, he does trauma therapy, and he goes, it's so crazy because he does like improv for it, and he goes, it's so funny like because he did like a group session with it, and they picked like a game to play, like, and these were all like adults, and it was like a game that we all played as a child, and they had the most fun they've ever had. Yeah.
Oh my god, I would love to do that.
Yeah.
I love my practice is like developmentally and trauma informed, so that's so cool. Get a bunch of adults play these kid games, see who gets mad.
Because it's like we forget that, you know, we still have our inner child in us, like that's how we create things into reality, it's through play, and that's how we have fun. Laughter helps to transcend I guess anger as well, because the opposite to anger is laughter, from what I've learned.
Yeah. And the relationships you seek out, like the type of relationships and connections you make will have its roots in when you were raised. So like how your parents raised you is probably how you're going to show up in relationships too, or at least affects it. Yeah,
and it's generally like we try and do the opposite, but the opposite to crazy is still crazy.
I know. It's like, oh, I don't want that. And then my sister, her partner is exactly like my dad. And just growing up, like my sister and my dad were just like complete opposites, but it's just funny to see how much her partner is just like my dad now, and she's just like,
it's funny when you sit down and reflect on that, and it's like, holy crap, you end up attracting, you know, your parents, because like you generally when you get in relationships, you're trying to fix what you couldn't fix in your parents.
Yeah. I love it. I love that her partner's like my dad, because now it's like my dad but younger, and he's my friend. Like it's cool like that. Yeah, it's really cool. I'll get you to share like all your Instagrams and all that stuff, and I'll plug it in the bio below for you as well. Cool. So my Instagram is @holistic_grow.flow, and then on Facebook it's just Grow and Flow Holistic Healing. So yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Cheers. All right. Cheers for tuning in today's podcast today, guys. Give it a like, comment, let us know what you think and all that jazz. Also, too, if you think it will value a friend, feel free to share it with them. What else too, if you want to support the podcast that little extra bit, feel free to head over to my website at www.mitchellcrocker.com to purchase a t-shirt, or head over to Patreon, which I'll link that down and below. And if there's any way that I can support you guys at all, feel free to send me a DM and any of my social media sites, or head over to mitchellcrocker.com for all my services and programs and all that kind of stuff. You need that extra support and all that. But yeah, thank you again for tuning in to today's podcast today, guys. Couldn't do this without you. But yeah, so peace.